Signed that executive order on January 27th. We've been fast forward on this. We're here on this day, and this is just one stop in delivering this defense of the homeland, which is something you've charged us with doing, and we'll keep going until it is complete, sir.
Thank you, Pete. Pete's doing a great job, by the way. Thank you very much. General, please.
President, today is a great day for the nation as we double down on protection of the homeland. As you're aware, our adversaries have become very capable and very intent on holding the homeland at risk. While we have been focused on keeping the peace overseas, our adversaries have been quickly modernizing their nuclear forces, building out ballistic missiles capable of hosting multiple warheads, building out hypersonic missiles capable of attacking the United States within an hour and traveling at 6,000 miles an hour, building cruise missiles that can navigate around our radar and our defenses, building submarines that can sneak up on our shores, and worse yet, building space weapons. It is time that we change that equation and start doubling down on the protection of the homeland. Golden Dome is a bold and aggressive approach to hurry up and protect the homeland from our adversaries. We owe it to our children and our children's children to protect them and to afford them a quality of life that we have all grown up enjoying. Golden Dome will afford that. I greatly appreciate your trust in me and your nomination in me and your trust in the team to deliver this. It is a great day for America.
And also, very importantly, it's we're the only ones that have this. We call it super technology. Nobody else has it. And nobody else has really near what we have. So this is a very exciting project. This is something that will, I mean, the general said close to 100% protection, so that's something we need. I think it's a very, and everything's going to be made in the USA, by the way, very importantly. So it's something that I've been looking forward to for a long time. And I just noticed you too, Jim, you're standing there.
You know, this is interesting because it's the very first time in a long time that I know of that Donald Trump has actually had Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth in the Oval Office here with the media. And I'm sure it was just to avoid questions and things like that. But interesting, he's now starting to bring Pete Hegseth out. You have to for this announcement, I suppose, but good.
There behind you is a very important document, Declaration of Independence. And that was in the vault for many decades right under this area. They have vaults with pictures on top. You have Abraham Lincoln. You see that was the original Abraham Lincoln, the original Washington. And does everybody know who the middle was? General Grant. And so it's very exciting. You look over here, and above Ronald Reagan, you have Thomas Jefferson. That's Monroe from the Monroe document. And you know who that is, right? Andrew Jackson. So we have a lot of very exciting pictures, and on the other side, likewise, some great presidents and great people. And many of these, because people were asking about them, many of them, almost all of them, were in the vaults or nearby, but generally in the vaults downstairs, where we have some great. So it's very exciting. The place has become a little different than you first saw it, Jim, right?
Yes, much
better.
better.
A little bit different, it's slightly better. But to think we had them, and some were in the vaults for over 100 years. So it's pretty cool stuff. Everybody knows Jim Banks. He's a great congressman, and now he's a great senator from Indiana. And you might want to say a few words, Jim.
Well, your legacy with Space Force, Mr. President, is already big, but the Golden Dome is going to be an even bigger legacy for our country. And Indiana is going to help you make it.
Right.
The space satellites that are made in Fort Wayne, Indiana by L3 Harris, all the work done at Crane Navy Base in southern Indiana is going to be a big part of it. And Hoosiers are very proud of that. We're proud of you. Thank you very much.
It's going to be a big factor. Thank you, and good luck, and congratulations. You won that race by a lot. That wasn't even a contest, right?
Well, thank you. Thanks to you and all of your support.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Please go ahead. You missed that. This is Senator Kramer, and he's one of our best. Can't get any better. Go ahead.
Well, you're very nice, Mr. President, and thanks for this. And I remember the day in your first term when you called it. I was a brand new baby freshman senator on the Armed Services Committee, and you said, I want to have a Space Force. Would you lead the effort on the Senate Armed Services Committee? And I felt so proud thinking that you chose me, only to find out later no one else would do it. But nonetheless, it worked out really well because North Dakota has some great space assets. And that contributed to that and to Golden Dome. No surprise that you would be the president that would come along and put the homeland first. And this is just one more example of that. So thanks for this and for allowing me this afternoon. By the way, let me just add my strong endorsement of General Goodline's role in leading this. I don't know anybody better, for sure, better equipped to do it than he is.
Everybody said that. That's
for
great.
sure.
Dan Sullivan, Alaska, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you for your continued leadership on missile defense. We were talking earlier how in 2019 at the Pentagon, you laid out a speech about the Missile Defense Review
Right.
that had all these principles on missile defense that you articulated then during your first term, and now the Golden Dome is all of that. So you're continuing to lead. We really appreciate it. You know, the Congress is stepping up, as you mentioned right now in the budget
Right.
reconciliation bill, $25 billion for the Golden Dome. In what Senator Kramer and Senator Banks and I and many others, we're working on our, and I briefed you on this before, sir, on our Golden Dome Act, which we think will have, in terms of legislation that can help cement what you're doing right here, getting the Congress behind it, not just with the funding, but with authorizations. So we're working closely with Secretary Hegseth, General Gutlein, and the whole team. So we're very honored to be here, sir. And you know, Alaska is the cornerstone of missile defense right now in terms of ground-based missile
Right.
interceptors,
That's right.
in terms of radar systems and track incoming missiles. So my state is honored to continue to play a critical role in all of this and build on it. And we're really excited to be here.
No, tick bag. This is from a couple hours ago, 4 hours ago. This is from 4 hours ago. Tick bag.
Thank you very much, Dan. Great. Any questions?
And Mr. President, you had mentioned at the beginning of your remarks that this was a campaign promise of yours. Have military commanders asked for this system specifically? Because NORAD had said previously that the current system was adequate. So what does this get the United States
Somebody
that
said the
isn't
current
already
system is
in
adequate. There
before?
really is no current system. We have certain areas of missiles and certain missile defense, but there's no system. We just have some very capable weapons that hopefully we never have to use, but we have some very capable weapons. Now, this is a different league. There's never
Trump.
been anything like this. This is something
he's so
that's
good.
going to be very protective. I think you can rest assured there'll be nothing like this. Nobody else is capable of building it
Oh, I love it so much, PM. This is so good. He's so good. Trump is so good.
either.
Was
Yeah,
it something
please,
that
go ahead.
military commanders asked you for? Did they ask you to do this?
Well, let me put
Pentagon.
it differently. I suggested it, and they all said, "We love the idea, sir." It's the way it's got to be, right? But they want it, and they wanted it badly once it was suggested. I don't know if they ever thought they would be lucky enough to have it, but we were able to get it done, and we have all the funding, so pretty much tucked away. I think most people feel it's very important to have. Yeah, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. When you first announced this idea, critics said it would be prohibitively expensive, potentially ineffective, and could trigger an arms race in space. What do you say to those critics about that?
Well, they're wrong. It's about as close to perfect as you can have in terms of real production. I told you Canada wants
It's about as perfect as you can have in terms of real production. That doesn't answer the question, but it's hilarious. Donald Trump is so good. Miss Foxy in the house. What up? I had a friend ask me if I wanted to go to a WNBA game. I was like, hey, not really. I'd probably say yes, just because I've never been to one. Have you been to one, Miss Foxy? Have you ever been to one?
to be a part of it, which be, fairly small expansion. But we'll work with them on pricing. We'll be dealing with them on pricing. They know about it very much. They've asked to be a part of it, actually. They've asked us to be a part of it. I think it's something that is great. If you can afford to do it, we can afford to do it. We took in $5.1 trillion in the last 4 days in the Middle East. And when you think about it, this is a tiny fraction of that. But we make it all here. We're going to make it all here. We have, I will tell you, an adversary told me, a very big adversary.
Fair
told
enough,
me
Miss
the
Foxy.
Most brilliant people in the world are Silicon Valley. He said, we cannot duplicate him. We can't. This was somebody that I won't tell you who it is, but you'd be amazed. We have the most brilliant minds in the world doing this kind of thing, the equipment, the space, the computers, everything. But I said that we just can't duplicate what you have there in Silicon Valley. We never have been able to. This is a very strong group of people and very strong minds, but they can't. So we have things that nobody else can have. You see what we've done helping us.
I love that, Donald Trump. We have things that nobody else can have. America. But no, it's actually pretty interesting that's one of Donald Trump's main points here is that the United States has like the ability, the money, the know-how, the technology, the AI. We have everything to be able to do this that nobody else really can. Like other people may have certain elements, other countries may have certain elements of what it takes to do this, but nobody has all of them like the United States does. And it's a really good point by Trump. And it's a fantastic thing for a lot of different reasons.
Israel with that. You probably wouldn't have an Israel. They launched probably 500 missiles altogether, and I think one half of
Oh,
them.
I love it so much, PM. I love it
that
so
was
much,
only
PM.
falling to the ground as scrap metal. It's pretty amazing, and this is
In fact, I got to go back and watch because I was talking over that.
what you have there in Silicon Valley. We never have been able to, and this is a very strong group of people and very strong minds, but they can't. So we have things that nobody else can have. You see what we've done helping Israel with that. You probably wouldn't have an Israel. They launched probably 500 missiles altogether, and I think one half of a missile got through, and that was only falling to the ground as scrap metal. It's pretty amazing, and this is in terms of technology far advanced from that system.
And just one follow-up on the adversaries. Have you addressed Russia's
Numb USA is right. What a day. Holy cow.
ventures in space with a space-based nuclear weapon and told Putin to stop in your conversations with him?
We haven't discussed it, but at the right time we will. Yeah.
Mr. President, with the goal of keeping
Go ahead.
Americans, with the goal of keeping Americans safe with this, can you talk about the timeline? How long will this take to complete?
We think it's going to be about a little bit less than 3 years, and we'll have a big phase-in very early. You know, we're starting immediately with $25 billion. It'll cost about $175 billion completed, but we think in 2.5 to 3 years. Yeah.
Are you confident that you can get the funding needed from Congress quickly?
It's amazing how easy this one is to fund. You know, some funding is tough and some is easy. When we say we're going to save everyone's lives in a crazy world, it seems to be very easy to get. Yeah, we've already spoken to everybody that we have to speak to. Everybody's in, I would say, Dan, everybody's in line here.
Yes, sir. $25 billion is a down payment in the budget reconciliation bill right now.
Yeah, so I think
Mr. President, on Russia,
people actually love it.
Mr. President, on Russia, are you worried about the reports on a military buildup along the borders towards Finland and Norway?
No, I don't worry about that at all. They're going to be very safe. Those are two countries that are going to be very safe.
And the secondly, sir, if I may, Volodymyr Zelensky is saying today that he's hoping for you to impose new sanctions on Russia.
See, right there, that's just like, that is such strong foreign policy right there by Donald Trump saying, like, no, I don't even care what Russia's doing. Like, Norway is safe. Like, Russia won't mess with Norway. Basically saying, I'll nuke Russia if they try to mess with Norway, essentially, is what he's saying there.
Are you worried about the reports on a military buildup along the borders towards Finland and Norway?
No, I don't worry about that at all. They're going to be very safe. Those are two countries that are going to be very safe.
And the secondly, sir, if I may, Volodymyr Zelensky is saying today that he's hoping for you to impose new sanctions on Russia. Are you considering that?
Well, that's going to be my determination. That's going to be nobody else's determination. We'll see how Russia behaves. We see what's going to happen. You know, we have a pretty critical time right now. I had a talk yesterday for 2.5 hours with President Putin, as you know. I also spoke to all of the European, or to many of them, leaders, but they were representing the whole. And I think we had very good conversations yesterday. Please.
Thanks, Mr. President. What companies have asked to be involved in building this system, and have you decided on who will be building it?
Yeah, I think I'll let you answer that. You can mention some of yours from Alaska's involved, and Alaska's a big part of it because locationally they're sort of perfect. I think it's your first line of defense in certain
American Patriot, what's up?
instances. And Kevin will tell you that his state's.
Yeah, American Patriot. It does kind of feel, I kind of agree with you on that one. It's like, it does kind of feel like Trump is giving a little bit more leeway to Russia than I'd like. But at the same time, it's like, you don't really want to second guess Trump. You want to let him cook. You want to let him work his foreign policy. Let him see if he can do a deal to end this war. It's like, let him try. Let him try his method. And there's no doubt that if it fails, and Russia sort of goes hard, and Ukraine hangs on, that Donald Trump will eventually go sort of full bore, like Ukraine support, military support. probably will even go heavier support for Ukraine than the Democrats did. Like, that's what people don't even know. And it's like, quit crying about like Ukraine and Russia right now.
But honestly, Georgia's going to be very big. Florida's going to be very big. They're all going to be very big. Jim, do you want to talk about India?
Guess, what up, Guess? I spoke with my uncle today who has the same cancer as Biden that is now terminal. He was fighting it for 4 years, so the idea came out of nowhere. So he caught it in a yearly blood test that showed the proteins in his blood 4 years ago. That's what I heard. Is it's in your blood test once you get to that age, or maybe it's always in every blood, like a basic blood test. I don't know. That's interesting, though. His doctor said he had 4 months at most, so my uncle's the same as Biden. Joe's been dying from cancer in front of us for 4 years. My goodness. Can you imagine? Yeah. My goodness. And they still put him out there. They still forced him out there. That's why Jill Biden is going down as worst wife of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Fort Wayne, Indiana, where I live, we make all the space satellites at L3 Harris. Across the board, we're the...
Yo, you found it. Let's see. How do you say that? Myron 58. Welcome, Myron. You found the best conservative stream on Twitch.
The top manufacturing state in the country. By the way, the tariffs have been very good for auto manufacturing in Indiana.
So good.
But this is going to be really good for the defense industry in my state. And there's so much money involved here. There are going to be a lot of American companies involved in making the Golden Dome
You
possible.
might also say, you're talking about the tariffs, he has some of the biggest auto plants in the world moving into Indiana, only for one reason, maybe two reasons, November 5th and the tariffs, okay?
Yes, sir.
But the tariffs have driven tremendous business into this country, but you have one of the biggest in the world being built.
The Honda Civics,
Right.
the new Honda Civic made in Indiana. GM has added jobs. Eli Lilly moving pharmaceutical manufacturing from China to the United States, $27 billion. You go on and on with good news in Indiana and across the country because of the tariffs.
Our country was cold as ice a year ago, and now we have the hottest country in the world. This is the hottest country in the world, nobody even close. If you look at even this last trip that I made, the respect that is paid to our country. We've went from being laughed at all over the world, and now we're the hottest country in the world by far. Dan, go ahead, please.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. I think when you look at the system that you've laid out, it's an idea in your executive order of a layered defense. So you have initial ground-based missile interceptors, which are made by some of the big defense companies, Lockheed Martin, Raytheon. But the beauty of your vision, Mr. President, is that it's layered, it's open architecture, and it goes up into space. So this is going to be some of the new defense tech companies that are very interested in it and can bring missile defense at a cost that I don't think, you said it, Mr. President, is unimaginable in terms of how much lower the cost is. So it's all across the board in terms of companies.
You know what that means to me right there? You know what that means to me right there, guys? That means Palantir. That means Anduril. That means SpaceX. That doesn't, you know what I mean? Yes, Rocket Lab. Yes. No.
Senator Kramer and I just met with a bunch of them last week that are interested in this. And you said it earlier, Mr. President, our technology sector is head and shoulders above any other place in the world. And they're going to be a key part of this. And I think that's why it makes it so exciting.
Mr. President, I think one of the things and you alluded to this, the new autonomous...
Dude, what's Twitter saying about Palantir? What's Twitter saying about Palantir? Because this has got to be good news for Palantir. Palantir consolidating above former highs. Perfectly normal action. Looks about ready for next leg higher. I would have expected like I would have almost assumed this Golden Dome announcement and especially some of these comments like that just scream the use of Palantir, Anduril, SpaceX, Rocket Lab, etc., etc. Like, I would expect all of those companies' stocks to be kind of spiking on this, but maybe not. Maybe it's already priced in because sort of everybody already knew this was going to be the deal because it was the only thing that made sense.
Space age defense ecosystem is more about Silicon Valley than it is about big metal, right? And so what's exciting about this is it makes it available to everybody to participate, to compete. Big companies, mid-sized companies, small companies, but General Gutlein is the perfect person again to sort all that out, because he understands how it has to work together ultimately.
I'm sure PM, the way it sounded, the way that senator just explained it was like, holy cow. By the way, Myron, don't forget to hit that heart button, Myron, if you haven't followed yet. Myron. Riding Fence with the 71-month primer. Oh, there it is. Myron with the follow. Thank you, Myron. Yo, thank you. Appreciate that, Riding Fence, for the primer that long. Appreciate you being here, Riding Fence. So good to have you, man. Always love your pithy comments. Yeah, no, Guess. And by the way, Guess, I'm reading all the stuff you guys are writing and typing here in chat. That's just wild, the Biden story. It really is. He did say he had cancer. I remember that, Guess. Yeah, I remember that. Everybody there was like, oh, it's a gaffe, it's a gaffe. It's like, no, like Joe Biden said he had cancer, and he even had a reason for it, and it was part of the speech, and it's very bizarre. Wouldn't you just love to know the whole entire truth about everything Joe Biden's done and how evil, all the evil it was that happened behind the scene? Wouldn't that be, I wouldn't actually probably want to know all that, honestly.
And Pete, maybe we'll close with you. We have been discussing this for a long time. Pete and I used to discuss it when I was going to go on a show that he did very well and had tremendous ratings, but all he wanted to talk about was the military. He didn't want to talk about anything else. We used to talk about this. How about you closing it out?
Yes, sir. I mean, like I said, without your vision, willing to say and do things when other people wanted to look away and pretend like the threat didn't exist, or be focused on foreign adventurism, some other threat that we've been told is affecting us. When you looked at the data, sir, from Russia to the Communist Chinese and their capabilities, what they're trying to do to supersede us and threaten us, how do we find the best innovators, the best military leaders, the best companies, tech companies? You mentioned open architecture. That's exactly right. So multiple companies can pour into this, sir. It's a layered defense. So if you miss at one, you catch at the next. And it integrates existing technologies that can speak to each other. So it moves quickly while also investing in further ranging space-based interceptors. So our enemies, our adversaries, are going to pay a lot of attention to this, just like they have to President Trump from day one. So you're defending the homeland, defending the American people. It's going to benefit my kids, grandkids, all of ours in this room. So thank you for your leadership. We're going to charge ahead as fast as we can.
Very good. Great job, everybody. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Absolutely fantastic. The Donald Trump TV show continues here. Episode 520, 2025. Fantastic episode today. This is literally, the presidency is a daily TV show, and it's the best ever. Like, it's unbelievable how good this is and how entertaining Trump is. I mean, it's just out of this world how good of a job Donald Trump is doing. And the fact that, oh, here we go. What's this?
Happening now on the Hill. The meeting is over. Drop on in.
Love in that room. There was no shouting. I think it was a meeting of love. There were a couple of things that we talked about specifically where some people felt a little bit one way or the other, not a big deal. And I covered them. It wasn't so much a speech. I covered certain points. And I think I'd be very surprised.
You told him you were losing patience. Are you losing patience?
No, I didn't tell him. Who told you I said I'm losing patience?
That's what we heard inside the room. You said you didn't say
wait a minute. Who's told you that?
We heard from people inside the room.
Oh, really? It's totally true. I never used the term. I didn't say losing. I didn't even talk about it. In fact, it's the opposite. I think we're going to get it done. I'm not losing patience. We're ahead of schedule. Anybody that told you that is a liar. Wait a minute. I never mentioned the word losing patience because I'm not losing patience. We're ahead of schedule.
That's why I asked you. I want to get clear.
That's amazing. I actually believe Donald Trump here. The media is literally trying to concoct a story. You can tell, like, Mike Johnson's even, like, nodding and stuff.
Why don't you go back to your source and tell them they're liars, if the source even exists?
Bill passes the House.
Yeah.
Senators are already talking about making a number of changes over
Sure.
their chamber.
Always
Is
have.
that okay?
Yeah.
Or do you want them to swallow
Yeah,
this bill?
in some cases, they have things that I like even better. No, it always happens. There'll be some changes.
Mr. President.
John Thune and Mike have been very closely aligned on this. They've been moving it up together.
Apparently you said don't F with Medicaid. Apparently you did say in the room. There is some concern among some Republicans, including Senator Josh Hawley, that this could impact benefits and that could be amount to a quote, hidden tax on the
I didn't say, here's what I said.
I'm wondering if you're.
Here's what I said. What do you want to say? I said waste, fraud, and abuse.
Here's my thing. That's not enough. We need to cut a lot more than just the waste, fraud, and abuse. So, like, we're not cutting enough. I'm really upset right now. They're not cutting enough spending out of this junk.
For Medicaid. If you find waste or fraud or abuse, we want to strengthen Medicaid. We want to strengthen Medicare. Waste, fraud, and abuse. The Democrats will let illegals be on. They'll destroy it. It will be destroyed. They want to have illegal immigrants be on. And if you do that, because it wasn't designed for that. Waste, fraud, and abuse.
Can you guarantee that your voters who supported the election, particularly working class voters, will not lose health insurance under this bill?
Oh, they won't lose health insurance. Not only that, remember, I'm cutting drug prices by 85%. And right now, I'm saving it. I'm saving the whole thing because I did something that nobody was willing to do. Other countries pay a tiny fraction what we do. And I instituted favored nations. We're now going to pay the lowest in the world. We're going to be the equivalent of the lowest country in the world. People go to London, they go to Canada, they go to other countries, many other countries, because they want to buy their pharmaceutical products, their drugs, at a fraction of the cost. Now we're going to have the lowest cost anywhere in the world, and nobody else would do that but me. And that might be an election by itself, might be election winning. Now, when you add that in, when you put that into Medicaid and Medicare, we've just strengthened Medicare and Medicaid. And the Democrats won't do that. You know why? Because they're taking...
Wow, are you serious? Guess the Supreme Court? When did they just rule that way? When did that happen? Wow, you're right. Oh my goodness, dude, this is crazy. The Supreme Court Tuesday granted a request from Republican Maine state lawmaker Laurel Libby to restore her voting power for the next legislative session after she was censored earlier this year for expressing opposition to transgender athletes competing in girls' sports in a controversial post on X. The court made its decision with a brief unsigned order that did not explain its reasoning. The two libs, Sotomayor and Jackson, dissented. Wow. Of course. Unbelievable. Those two. Libby was censored in February by a Democrat Maine House after she posted on social media about a Maine high school girls indoor track and field state championship where the transgender student who won first place in girls pole vault had competed in the boys division the previous year. Wow. Libby is an outspoken critic on the issue of allowing transgender athletes to participate in girls' sports. Last month, she had joined Pam Bondi at a press conference. The Maine lawmaker sued the state's House Speaker. Why? So Maine, the state of Maine is just the most radical left extremist communist on transgender issues? What in the world? The Maine lawmaker sued the state's House Speaker along with other Democrats, saying her First Amendment rights had been violated. Her constituents were being disenfranchised by her inability to vote or speak on the floor. In a scathing dissent Tuesday, Jackson argued the decision to intervene in cases where there was not apparent emergency was inequitable and unwise. Wow. Wow. That's crazy, man.
Taken care of by the drug companies. And the ones that are taken care of are hard line. Some Republicans get money from drug companies, and that's okay, because they're okay with it. I talked about it. The drug companies take care of everybody. It's the biggest lobby, most powerful lobby in the world. There's no lobby like that. But the Republicans are okay with it. Not only okay.
Oh, I know, Num. Our courts. We have some pretty activist courts. I'll put it that way. We have some very activist courts in Montana. Num.
Okay with it. They love it. It was time. So we're going to cut drug prices from 75 to 85, in some cases even more than that.
Heck yeah, I guess. I'm so excited for Rob. I'm so stoked for Rob.
You know, I was telling the story that, and some of you were at that news conference. I gave a news conference where I was the first one in 18 years to cut drug costs for the year. And they were like a quarter of a point to half a point less. And I was very proud of that. Now I'm cutting them by 80, 85%, because I stopped the scam. This was a scam between the middlemen and the drug companies. This was a giant scam. And by the way, and other countries, because other countries fought for this. This was a giant scam, and we're not going to have it. So remember this. Go back and tell your people, if you'd like to, that the Republican Party is cutting the cost of drugs by as much as 85%. Not 8%, not 5%, not 1%, 85%. And you're going to have the lowest drug prices anywhere in the world, because I'm doing favored nations. And
Oh,
it's
for
all
sure,
done.
Num, yeah.
I signed it. And the Democrats will unsign it. And the drug
Tylenol,
prices are gonna go.
1927
And I think
ethos.
with that
Welcome,
issue
guys.
alone, you can't lose an election.
Mr. President, weaponizing with the arrest of a congresswoman, Democratic congresswoman.
Oh, give me a break. Did you see her? She was out of control.
Did you address
know, those days are over.
Did
The
you
days
tell them
of
to do
woke.
that?
The days of woke. No, I didn't. The days of woke are over. That woman, I have no idea who she is. That woman was out of control. She was shoving federal agents. She was out of control. The days of that crap are over in this country. We're going to have law and order.
Mr. President, thank you very much. You campaigned on lowering the price of groceries. How do you justify cutting food assistance in this bill?
Let me just tell you, the cut is going to give everybody much more food, because prices are coming way down. Groceries are down. Eggs. You told me about eggs. You asked me a question about eggs my first week. You said eggs. I said, I just got here. Tell me about eggs. And it was going through the roof. You know that eggs now, way down. Everybody's buying eggs. Groceries down. Energy's down. Gasoline is now they're buying gasoline now for $1.99.
Eggs are down.
If you look back, you'll see $3.50, $4. This country, we're going to lose this country. Our country now is respected all over the world. All over the world we're respected. We were a laughing stock. The entire world we were a laughing stock. I went to the Middle East, and those rulers of those three countries are very powerful people, very big people, very rich people. They respect our country again. China was going to take them over. You know, China was going to they were going to get into the, if you look, Saudi Arabia, you take a little look what was happening with Qatar, UAE, great people, unbelievable leaders, but they were abandoned by this country. And they're not going to China anymore. They love us, we love them. We're going to take care of them, and they're going to take care of us. We came back with $5.1 trillion. Trillion. Every other president would have come back having spent $5.1 trillion as usual. And remember this, we were losing $5 billion a day under the past administration. I have to be a little bit careful the way I talk, because there's a lot of anger about that administration. And by the way, the real question, who ran the order?
Senator Murray.
Thank you.
Trump was just about done there. Let's see, what else did we have today that happened? Holy cow, there was a ton of stuff going on today in Congress and on Capitol Hill and stuff, huh? Jeez.
Senator Murray. Happening now on the Hill, the meeting is over.
Let's see what else is going on here. Oh my gosh, Kayleigh McEnany, you can't go wrong.
President Trump is sympathetic about former President Biden's advanced prostate cancer diagnosis, but he's also raising pretty important questions about the timeline surrounding it, and he wants answers.
I think it's very sad, actually. I'm surprised that it wasn't, the public wasn't notified a long time ago, because to get to stage 9, that's a long time. There are things going on that the public wasn't informed, and I think somebody's going to have to speak to his doctor, if it's the same, or even if it's 2 separate doctors. Why wasn't the cognitive ability, why wasn't that discussed? And I think the doctor said he's just fine, and it's turned out that's not so. It's very dangerous. Look, this is no longer politically correct. This is dangerous for our country. So it's a very, very sad situation. I feel very badly about it. And I think people should try and find out what happened. Somebody is not telling the facts. That's a big problem.
Emily, there's so much we need to learn. And what is interesting, and MSNBC doctor flagged this yesterday, and we dug into it, and here's what we found. These are PSA numbers that past presidents have put in their medical reports. You can see all of them. I mean, down to, a second numeral there, a second digit. President Trump, Obama, Bush. The Brain Room could not find any indication that Biden had taken this test. That makes one of 2 options possible. Maybe he took the test and it wasn't included in the report, or he didn't. I would just note the Wall Street Journal has a great article out about there are some recommendations of not taking this test over 75. I hope that wasn't the case. I think the president should be tested. He's the president of the United States. But a lot of questions why these 3 presidents took it, and we have no evidence that Biden did.
Of course. Look, I see it. I mean, it's not necessarily a binary choice only, but it seems pretty clear to me that it's either gross negligence that can border on criminal, or it's an absolute obfuscation from the American people yet again, and then a resulting cover-up yet again. And for daring to ask questions throughout the prior administration, journalists and reporters, especially from Fox News and those in the mainstream media who were independent, who dared to ask those questions, were vilified, oftentimes on public television, for daring to question any type of acuity or anyone covering up. That simple fact was absolutely torn apart and shamed. And now we are hearing that potentially to the detriment of a beloved human, that he might have, look, we can't conjecture whether indeed the diagnosis came at the certain point that we were told, which was Friday, or whether it was known before. But I'll say that, my best friend tested positive for prostate cancer as a 45-year-old. And the point is that his team of doctors was monitoring the PSA levels, and the instant that it ticked above the precancerous to cancerous level, then he went through the surgery. So if that's the level of care, per the risk factors associated with his biology of a 45-year-old, then to have an 80-plus and the president to either not do it or to do it and hide it from the American people, as our commander-in-chief was battling that, either option is unacceptable.
No doubt. And this comes on the background of the Her audio, which shows very concerning symptoms from the president about his mental acuity. Harris, I want to bring up to you a frightening quote from that Alex Thompson book out today. It was previewed in The Atlantic, and here is the quote. 5 people were running the country, and Joe Biden was at best a senior board member. Not commander-in-chief, elected by the American people, a senior board member.
Who were the 5 people?
That's what I want to know.
Yeah. Is there a chapter on that? Yeah. I mean, look, a lot of this is they want to sell books. We totally get that from the 4 that are already dropping. But the other part of this is they didn't do their jobs contemporaneously. And I know we give a lot of credit to Alex Thompson with Axios. He got that White House Correspondents Award for having been one of the people to cover this along the way about the president was slipping and falling and not sentient at times, it would seem. all of that. But the investigation ensues. And when you hear people like, I believe it was David Axelrod earlier today, forgive me if not, but I think so, saying, well, you really want to back off him now. This gives a little bit of room to be softer on him as you look back at his legacy and have questions. No. We can do two things at once. We can totally have a heart for a man who's suffering with late stage cancer. Right? We totally have room for that and room in our prayers for all of it. He's part of our legacy here as the United States of America. What we cannot tolerate is a shutdown of the press again. They were volunteering to do it last time around. They were complicit in the cover-up, in my estimation. Now you can't be that. You've got to start to ask the questions. Who handed President Trump what? Who were the supposed 5 people, if that writer even, if that journalist even gets it right? Were they elected?
Yeah.
Who elected them? Was Jill Biden, his wife, one of them? How did she find the time? She had an aging man who, with a poor memory, who couldn't face classified documents.
Yep.
Testimony and investigation.
You think about those final cabinet meetings as well that were literally ran by Jill Biden. You have to think that his cabinet was asking the question, where is Joe? They hid the unhideable, really, for as long as they could because they knew they could. Think of all the things that are Democrat run, right? Of course, legacy media, Hollywood, entertainment, academia, corporate America. Unfortunately, even our judicial system seems to be run by activists in several cases, especially towards President Trump. It's really, really tragic stuff that we, as the American people, have to reap the I guess, benefits or lack thereof. Really tragic.
Yeah, I want to get to why this matters, John Yoo, because I have seen people say, why are we going back in time? Very important we go back in time. And here's why. It occurred to me yesterday that there was a moment in the presidency where a lot of people said Joe Biden lied. And it was when he did an interview with George Stephanopoulos. And he said he could not recall anyone telling him to leave 2,500 troops in Afghanistan. He could not recall. And everyone called it a lie. But I think there are new questions today as to whether he truly could not recall what generals were telling him. And I want to play what the generals said they told him, and then what Joe Biden told the nation with the renewed context of his memory.
I recommended that we maintain 2,500 troops in Afghanistan. And I also recommended earlier in the fall of 2020 that we maintain 4,500 at that time. I also have a view that the withdrawal of those forces would lead inevitably to the collapse of the Afghan military forces and eventually the Afghan government.
General Milley, I assume you agree with that in terms of the recommendation of 2,500?
What I said in my opening statement and the memoranda that I wrote back in the fall of 2020 remained consistent, and I do agree with that.
Your top military advisors warned against withdrawing on this timeline. They wanted you to keep about 2,500 troops.
No, they didn't. It was split. That wasn't true. That wasn't true.
They didn't tell you that they wanted troops to stay?
No, not in terms of whether we were going to get out in a time frame, all troops. They didn't argue against that. No one said that to me that I can recall.
13 people, heroes, died at the Abbey Gate, and I have a lot of new questions about what happened that day.
There's got to be an investigation, and we shouldn't rely on the media, as Harris said, to do it. We got to have a congressional investigation to make sure that the president, it's not just backward looking, to make sure that the presidency hasn't become dysfunctional. That's not so easy for staff and aides, none of whom were elected, to exercise the power that the American people voted in actually one person, and not to spread it out, not to have Jill Biden doing it, not to have chiefs of staff doing it, but to have the president doing it. And that's because the founders in the Constitution concentrated all this power in one person, the president. We rely on that single person, now Donald Trump, to protect the nation's security. Look at what a bad job Biden did in Afghanistan, as you mentioned, Kayleigh. What would have happened if China had invaded Taiwan during Biden's presidency? What would have happened if Tehran had gotten a nuclear weapon and dropped one on Jerusalem? I'm sorry, on Tel Aviv. They wouldn't want to hit Jerusalem, but Tel Aviv. That gives you the idea of the stakes. And so we can't just say, oh, it's just one president, one time only. This is something that could be a structural defect in the way our presidency is working now. I think this is what Congress should do. They should have a special committee like we had for Iran-Contra, like we have for Watergate. And here's another idea. They should make Robert Hur the special counsel.
I love that.
Really? That's interesting.
Last question for you, because I've read a lot of your work about the constitutional power of the executive, and it's spot on. Did you ever imagine that constitutional power of the executive would be filled by a board of 5 unknown individuals?
It's a great point. I think what the founders thought our presidents would have energy in the executive. That's the phrase they used. They wanted the president to act with decision and speed. Those are the adjectives that definitely don't describe Joe Biden in his waning years. And so I think this might be a problem that we have with the presidency. We didn't think we would have these incompetent.
If it's Tuesday, President Trump hits Capitol Hill, telling Republican holdouts to get in line now behind a sweeping mega bill that contains his top priorities, as House Republicans plan to hold a committee meeting tomorrow at 1 in the morning to try and get the bill over the finish line this week. Plus, the Justice Department charges a Democratic congresswoman from New Jersey, accusing her of assaulting 2 federal agents outside an ICE detention center, and Democrats condemn the charges as baseless and political intimidation. And Elon Musk says he's going to spend, quote, a lot less money on politics going forward, marking a major reversal for the world's richest man and prominent Trump supporter, who was the single biggest donor in the 2024 election. Welcome to Meet the Press Now. I'm Aaron Gilchrist in Washington, where House Republican leadership today played their trump card in the form of President Trump himself, hoping to get the conference to stop fighting and get a deal done on the president's sweeping tax and spending bill. And as of right now, the results of that play are inconclusive. President Trump was met with enthusiastic applause when he entered the House Republicans meeting earlier today, as you can see in this.
House fake news. Fake news, MSNBC. I can't believe they frickin', yeah. Did you guys know that they started doing Meet the Press every single day? They just started pimping out the Meet the Press name tonight, where Meet the Press Now every single day. It's like, okay, you guys are literally just wasting the brand name that actually meant something and was something.
Right now, the results of that play are inconclusive. President Trump was met with enthusiastic applause when he entered the House Republicans meeting earlier today, as you can see in this video shared by a member of Congress. But he came with a stern message for the holdout factions of battleground moderates and Freedom Caucus hardliners. Get this bill passed now. Here's what the president had to say on the way out of the meeting.
It was really a meeting of unity. We had tremendous unity. There's a lot of love in the room. I think we're going to have a big victory. I think anybody that didn't support it as a Republican, I would consider to be a fool. It's a great bill.
I would consider to be a fool. It's a great bill. Is it, though? Is it? How much debt does it add? Trump warns GOP dissenters to drop objections on SALT and Medicaid. A fire sale of Portland's largest office tower shows how far the city has fallen. The once premier building is now over half empty, reflecting how the Oregon city's downtown is struggling with crime and quality of life. New York's wealthiest all want to live downtown now. Rich buyers are following tech and finance firms to downtown Manhattan, paying tens of millions to live in neighborhoods like Greenwich Village, Tribeca, and West Chelsea. Biden's office says he was last screened for prostate cancer in 2014. Let me ask ChatGPT what the recommended screenings for prostate are. For men over 55, PSA blood test every year. Digital rectal exam. Not always routinely recommended. Recommends individualized decision making for PSA screening in men 55 to 69. Not recommended for men 70 over. I don't get it. So why don't they recommend prostate? Wasting electricity. I asked ChatGPT, why don't they recommend prostate cancer screening for men over 70? Prostate cancer screening is not routinely recommended for men over 70, especially those with limited life expectancy. One, prostate cancers are slow growing. Most prostate cancers in older men are indolent, grow very slowly. Those cancers often do not cause symptoms or lead to death, especially in men with less than 10 to 15 years of expected lifespan. Risk of overdiagnosis and overtreatment. PSA screening can detect cancers that would never become clinically significant. Diagnosis can lead to unnecessary treatment. Large studies have shown minimal to no mortality benefit from screening in older men. The time needed to benefit from screening, 10 plus years, often exceeds the life expectancy of many men over 70. Okay, so but like just because you're expected to die sooner than that doesn't mean that like you will, and doesn't mean that like the screening couldn't potentially detect it and allow you to live longer. This is crazy to me, kinda. While routine screening is discouraged after age 70, healthy older men with longer life expectancy, very fit 70, 75-year-olds may still benefit. Dude, I would love to be a very fit 70 to 75-year-old, which is why I'm trying to work out as much as I am. I did about an hour and a half of working out today. That's crazy, man. Sorry about that. I got to check this Oregon story. After Digital Trends moved out of U.S. Bancorp Tower in Portland, the tech publisher didn't hold back about why it left. The property, once the premier address in the city, was afflicted with vagrants sleeping in hallways of vacant office floors. They were starting fires in stairwells, smoking fentanyl, and defecating in common areas, according to papers the company filed in a lease termination lawsuit. 2 years later, the city's biggest office tower stands more than half empty. U.S. Bank, the largest tenant whose parent company's name is on the building, pulled most of its employees out last year after more than a century in the city. Wow. Dude, Portland has failed this bad? Wow. The 42-story tower was recently put up for sale. The building, affectionately known as Big Pink because of its pink-hued Spanish granite and pink glazed glass has an asking price of $70 million. That's 80% below what the owners paid for it a decade ago. Wow. Even investors like Jordan Menashe, who seek out distressed properties, are steering clear of this one. He says any turnaround looks years away. I don't see a way to get it into the green in the next 5 to 7 years. Most popular news. Joe Biden had unrivaled Medicare. How did his cancer go undetected? News that the president is battling aggressive stage 4 prostate cancer that spread to the bone ignited a public debate about why a person with peerless access to medical care was diagnosed at an advanced stage with a disease that is quite common in mid age. Many prostate cancers in the U.S. are detected with the blood test that measures PSA. The test is cheap and can help find cancer. There's some particularly aggressive prostate cancers that don't secrete enough PSA to be flagged on the test, but those are rare. The 82-year-old Biden's last known prostate cancer blood screening was performed in 2014. Prostate screening for men in their 80s isn't considered standard care. The U.S. Preventive Service Task Force advises against PSA for men ages 70 above, false positives, and over-treating low-risk forms of the disease. It's many ways unsettling. On the other hand, this is often how prostate cancer presents. We typically don't do PSA screening beyond 75 or late 70s. Biden, however, wasn't a typical patient. As the oldest president in U.S. history, his health was under considerable scrutiny. Donald Trump does get screened. He released the results of his prostate cancer screening last month, showing a normal score. Obama released his PSA score when he was president, as did Bush. Trump said he's very sad to hear about Biden's diagnosis, raised question about why it wasn't discovered earlier. Biden's cancer appears to be hormone sensitive and could be receptive to hormone-reducing drugs. Cancer doctors have said even patients with metastatic disease can live for years, but the disease probably isn't curable, and Biden will be grappling with it for the rest of his life. 10% of prostate cancers are already metastatic by the time they're diagnosed. That's crazy that Scott Adams was metastatic already, too, then. Like, what the heck? If it's only 10%, how are those both of them? Symptoms include difficulty urinating or blood in the urine. Symptoms including difficulty urinating. Never really had that. Blood in the urine. Never had that, thankfully. Don't appear until the disease is advanced. Biden's prostate is one of the most aggressive kinds. It's possible he could have had it growing in him for years. It could be possible that the shorter time somewhere to get a PSA screening after 70 had made something like this would have been picked up earlier. Doctors have debated for decades how often to screen men for prostate cancer and when to stop. The test can pick up cancers early while they're more treatable, but it can also flag false positives and pick up slow-growing cancers that would never become life-threatening, particularly in older men, leading to overtreatment, corresponding harms. Whoa! Whoa! Two subs right in the row? What the heck? Holy cow. Yo, Solomon, Liberty Twitcher dropping the 47 months at tier 3. Biden probably had a PSA test annually at least. You would kind of assume so, right? Liberty Twitcher? I mean, especially if he considered himself healthy and didn't want to die soon. Solomon, thank you. Tier 1. Wow. Solomon hitting 4 months at tier 1. Total sub for 31 months. Yo, thank you, Solomon. That was crazy. You guys both subbed at the same time. We almost got a hype train going here. Thank you guys so much. In the majority of cases, our guidelines maximize quality of life and reduce harms associated with over-detection and aggressive screening. look, like Donald Trump is like 80 something or whatever, and he's still getting screened, and he hasn't been overdiagnosed. I'm like, kind of makes sense to more, let's have a screening here on the president for freaking prostate cancer, please. Yeah, I would sort of assume that it was getting screened. Yeah, I would have to assume that he was getting screened. My opinion, and I'll go on the record here again on this. My opinion is that Joe Biden was getting screened. They did pick this up years and years ago. They have known about it, and they hid it from the American people. That's my opinion based on everything I can see and all the information that I have. I disagree with this idea that you stop screening for prostate cancer at age 70. I disagree with that. Your opinion is correct. Thank you, Liberty Twitcher. It's like, okay, maybe it's not standard care, but it's like, dude, most people are going to want to get screened for prostate cancer even when you're 70, 75 years old. That's insane to just say, nah, if I get prostate cancer, I'm going to die soon anyways because of life expectancy, like actuarial tables. Nobody thinks like that. That's the most absurd thing. Wow, even the guy on MSNBC's Morning Joe said it would be surprising if Joe didn't get the test. Oh my goodness. Even MSNBC's Morning Joe is admitting that it would be a shock, just a huge shocker, if Joe Biden actually hadn't been getting the PSA test. Even MSNBC's Morning Joe. Wow. Personal information I believe the public shouldn't have the right to know. I don't know. At least I have to have my private health details private. Wait, what are you talking about? Trump has at times failed to be transparent about his health. I love how Wall Street Journal concludes with this. Trump says, my PSA has been very good, Trump said in September 2016. It's always the first number I ask for. I say, give me that number. Trump was 70 at the time and a candidate for president. So Donald Trump knows how important the PSA is. Donald Trump is literally asking for the PSA every single time he goes to see the doctor. It's like, yeah, Joe Biden was getting tested. Solomon, yeah, and now they're offering MAID to like kids, aren't they? They're letting kids. Are they letting kids do that now too in Canada? That's so evil. Like I've talked about on the radio, Solomon. When I've been on the radio, I've talked about Canadian MAID, and I've found some stories and stuff that were published where some Canadian veterans who had served in the Canadian military and stuff were having some struggles, some various different issues. And they went in to see the doctor, and they were basically like, yeah, like, maybe you'd be better off just killing yourself. I mean, I couldn't believe it. That's literally what happens in the Canadian healthcare system. They're literally like, maybe you should consider just killing yourself. That's what they tell people that are struggling. I mean, it's unbelievable. Yeah, and that soldier had 2 kids. There you go, Solomon. Yeah, it's just like, holy cow, this is pure evil. Canada is evil, an evil country. I think we need to invade Canada and shut down the MAID program there. I would support U.S. military interventions in Canada and invasion of Canada to shut down the assisted suicide program. Keep in mind the medical establishment hates that people get full-body MRIs and calcium scoring scans on their own. They hate that we want early detection. Wait, how do you get a MRA and calcium scoring scan on your own? Because I would be interested in doing that if that, how do you do that? I've never done that myself. I've never been able to do an MRI on myself on my own. Prenuvo, for example. Interesting. Okay. And it's just you pay out of pocket, I assume? Preventative full body MRI scan. Prenuvo is a preventative full body MRI scan that detects developing diseases in a snapshot of physiological state, can identify cysts, tumors, skeletal. Dude, I need to do this. Closest one's probably in Denver for me. How much does it cost? Liberty Twitcher, how much does it cost? A calcium artery scoring scan for $200. Wow, that's not bad. Okay. How much does the MRI cost at Prenuvo? Because I'd definitely do this. I'm assuming it's like $1,000 or $2,000 or. Is there no price? Yeah, I would assume several thousand as well, Liberty Twitcher. Yeah, a couple thousand probably. Oh, do you offer financing? We offer third-party financing. All right, I'm going to ChatGPT, guys. I'm going to ChatGPT. What's the cost of a full body MRI preventative scan at a clinic? Oh, you found it? Was that on the website, Num? Like, am I just shitty at looking at website? 4K? Wow. Holy crap, that's not cheap. Yeah, under book. Oh, okay. I guess I could have found that eventually. ChatGPT says typically prices range from $650 to $3,000. Prenuvo must be like the top of the line. Simon Med offers the Simon One body scan for $650 to $950 and the Simon One Body Plus with AI imaging for $1,200. Ezra 60-minute full body MRI for $2,000. Prenuvo charges $2,500 for a full body scan. Oh, so maybe ChatGPT's data is old. Includes at-home blood draw to assess critical biomarkers of functional, metabolic, cardiovascular, liver, kidney, and hormonal health. Market-leading advanced brain health assessment, including brain volume analysis, and a proprietary FDA-cleared body composition analysis of volume and distribution of visceral, subcutaneous, and liver fat, volume and symmetry of lower body muscles and organ size. Ankles may not be visible for people taller than 5'9" or... Wow, that sounds amazing. You know what's also pretty cool? I have almost $20,000 in my health savings account, so that's nice. I could actually afford to go do this. Should do it for my wife first, though, is what I'd like to do. I'm 6'4". Numb. Well, might as well just cut your ankles off, Numb. Might as well just slice your ankles off. No ankles and feet for me. Right. Again, get a calcium artery scoring scan for about $200. That's even more important. Where do you get those? Where to get calcium artery scoring? I'm sure mine bad. I've got heart disease in my family, Liberty Twitcher, so that's actually concerning. Hospitals with cardiology departments, imaging centers, cardiologists. Oh, so I actually have to go to the real doctor. Okay. All right, yeah, I'll do that. Right. I've gotten like what I've done for my health-wise, Liberty Twitcher, is like I've gotten all of I've gotten like regular blood tests, like cholesterol, where they like check your lipids and cholesterol and vitamin levels, and I've gotten like blood work done like regularly at like, you know, preventative checkups with my doctor. But really the only thing that I've ever really cared about looking at is just like cholesterol levels. I couldn't tell you what any of that stuff is, Liberty Twitcher. I just got like the LDL, HDL, whatever all that stuff is. And all I knew was like, yeah, Mike, I've got high cholesterol. Yeah, no, I'm not an expert on any of that stuff, Liberty Twitcher. I mean, I know all along that like I need to exercise more and eat healthier. And actually, I've been exercising like you wouldn't believe. Like I exercised for like an hour and a half today. Yeah, I've heard that, Liberty Twitcher. Yeah, I'm no expert on heart disease either, or all of the different medical debates about it. So if what is then, tell us what's the cause then. The troubles at Big Pink, a potent symbol of what ails downtown Portland. They serve as a warning for what can happen to once bustling downtowns if they get caught in the doom loop of losing businesses. Many cities across the U.S. are starting to recover from what has been one of the worst downturns of the past 75 years. Businesses leased more office space during the first 3 months of 25 than in any quarter since 19. That turnaround stretches from New York to San Francisco after companies summoned workers back to the office and the return boosted local businesses. Wow. But Portland's commercial real estate market shows few signs of recovering. Rise in homelessness and the state's botched experiment with drug decriminalization. Unitas Community Credit Union, Wells Fargo among the big companies that have left Portland or are downsizing. Many are landing in the surrounding suburbs. Carbs, which cause inflammation, which is why you need to know homocysteine levels, C-reactive protein, A1C, fasting insulin. Holy cow. Carbs? So do you not eat any carbs then, Liberty Twitcher? No carbs. I'm not afraid of dying early, Liberty Twitcher. I'm not afraid of dying early. I also here's the other thing. I'm a master of carbs. Interesting. You don't know no carbs. Interesting. Here's the other thing though that I believe that's kind of like philosophical, I guess. Okay, then don't bother knowing those numbers or doing a calcium artery scoring scan. I probably won't, Liberty Twitcher. I mean, I will continue to get blood tests. I will continue to exercise, eat right. I would definitely like go and do more tests to like find out if I've got cancer screenings, all that stuff. But I sort of have a philosophical belief that like if I'm going to die young, I kind of sort of view that as not necessarily fate or like that's just going to happen, but sort of God's will, I guess would be a better way of putting it. And so, like, I believe in like taking risks. I guess like so I would take risks that where like you could potentially die, for example. Like I believe in taking risks like that. I don't know. I'm having a hard time like explaining it. But like I don't view like a direct correlation between like sort of obsessing about your health and living long. Like first of all, I don't think the facts back that up. I think that like if you look at actually factually what happens with humans, A lot of humans that don't worry about that kind of stuff live a very long time, and a lot of humans that do worry about that stuff don't live a long time. So I don't think factually there's like much data to back up the theory that like obsessing about your health means you're going to live longer than everybody else. I really don't. I could be wrong. If there's like a study out there that says like, you know, I don't know. I could be totally wrong about that. I believe in anti-aging and use RFK Jr. as an example. Pro-Law, what's up, Pro-Law? Good to see you. I do like RFK Jr.'s health stuff. I agree with RFK Jr. and I fully support Maha. Fully support everything RFK Jr. is doing with processed foods and all that stuff. Fully support all that. I've been on a low-sodium diet since 2016 when my mom had her heart attack, and that change in diet has added decades to my life. My doc said my whole family did it to make it easier on her. Wow, really, Guess? So why the low sodium? Should anybody that has heart disease in their family be on a low sodium diet? My grandmother gave up smoking and drinking at 95. She lived to be 101. It's not all about longevity. It's about living well, not being impaired. That I fully agree with, which is exactly why I'm exercising and lifting weights and doing all that stuff that I do. Because like I'm at that age now where like if I don't get back on track to like what I was like in my 20s now, then it's just gonna get harder and harder and harder every year that goes by. So I'm getting on track now. Also, 90% genetics probably. Right, 1927 ethos. A lot of like longevity is 90% genetics. What are your thoughts on the fertility clinic stuff? I love how the left is pretending it didn't happen or the left didn't create his ideology. So my thoughts on the fertility clinic stuff is, number one, I was disgusted by like the media report on it that I saw that basically implied that it was like a right winger that attacked that clinic, not recognized. And so it directly implied that it was like a conservative Christian that blew up that clinic. So I all I can tell you is that whole story has been so toxically twisted and turned and backwards that by the mainstream that, you know, I don't know. I didn't look into it much more beyond that. I basically was just like, oh, okay, this is one of these stories where you got a radical lunatic extremist leftist who like hates human life type of guy who like destroyed this thing, and the media is trying to paint it as a conservative Christian that did it. It's like, oh, it's just sort of par for the course, you know. It's like, all right, next story. You can't out-exercise a bad diet. No, but you can age well and not be impaired by exercising and lifting weights. It was actually pretty cool. I was in the sauna with an older guy, and I was like, dang, dude, like, how old are you? And he was like, dude, I'm 76. I was like, wow, you look great for 76. He's like, yep. He's like, I come to the gym and work out and lift weights just so I can do stuff, you know. He's like, a lot of guys my age, they can't do stuff anymore, and I can because I come here and work out and lift weights. And I was like, hell yeah. I was like, that's basically why I'm here. Shocking thing is a lot of processed foods have way too much salt. It's eye-popping. Oh, heart attack victims can't have. Let's see. Should I have a low sodium diet if I have heart attacks in my family history? Yes. Adopting a low sodium diet is a smart move if you have a family history of heart attacks or heart disease. This I don't buy for a second. Sodium is a freaking electrolyte. He was pro-climate change, pro-vegan, anti-religion, anti-life, pro-assisted suicide. Yeah, classic. You see the 80s and 90-year-olds in Japan, South Korea doing Tai Chi daily, and they do not need wheelchairs. Right. Salt is far less of a concern than carbs and sugars. A1C, fasting insulin, and inflammation markers are way more important. Salt is a cheap natural preservative. Scooby, what's up, Scooby? Yes, it is. We need some sodium, but not the amounts in. Oh, for sure, guess when you're talking about that processed food, it's insane. Guess how much sodium is in the processed junk. For sure, guess. So yeah, if you're on a low sodium, probably the best benefit of a low sodium diet would literally just be avoiding all of the processed food. You look at the processed food label and it's like a tiny little thing and it's got like 50% of your daily value of sodium in it. It's like, what in the world?
It's a great bill for America, more importantly.
So sources tell us that President Trump urged blue state moderates to end their push for an increased cap on state and local tax deductions. While Trump campaigned on increasing the SALT cap, he was dismissive of the idea on the way into the meeting.
Well, salt is a very interesting thing.
Pro-law, you're looking at my ChatGPT history. We were talking about these clinics, these private clinics, pro-law, that you can go to and you can do like preventative full body MRI scans where they give you like the latest and greatest of all medical testing and preventative scans and cancer scanning, and it's like $4,000. You go there, you get a full body MRI. We were talking about that, and then we were talking about how it's like, well, it's like if you're not even getting like your yearly blood work done and like keeping or even getting blood work done like once a month, or I don't know how the heck often. Freaking Liberty Twitcher sounds like he's doing blood work like every day. But every 6 months, okay. Every 6 months isn't too bad. Like that would be, you'd be better off starting with getting your blood work done every 6 months regularly and doing some basic health moves before you go and spend like $4,000 on a full body. Although, again, like I would go and do the $4,000 MRI body scan just if there's like, if it could detect like rare cancers or something like that, you know. Really, Pro-Law? That's wild. A package of ramen noodles has half of your daily amount of sodium. That's unreal, isn't that? Crazy.
Because the governors of New York and Illinois, those are the people that want this. And the Democrat states. The biggest beneficiary, if we do that. Thank you, Senator King.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. In response to an earlier question, you sort of posed a question back. What is one thing that has happened during the Trump administration that has strengthened Vladimir Putin's hand in Ukraine, mentioning that the sanctions were still in place? I just would like to introduce for the record an article dated February 28 from NBC News titled, State Department Terminates U.S. Support of Ukraine Energy Grid Restoration.
That'll be entered in the record.
I was in Ukraine the day after the Palm Sunday bombing in Sumy and spoke to USAID staffers who'd all been riffed. They're going to be laid off either in the middle of the summer or early September. I'm aware that that's subject to litigation, but they talked about the fact that the grant cancellation canceled a grant that USAID had in place, hundreds of millions of dollars, that has been used repeatedly to restore the Ukrainian energy grid after attack.
Thought that this video might be a little bit more exciting considering YouTube is recommending it to me. Oh, 7:30, guys. I'm kind of running out of gas. Let me raid somebody here. If you guys hang with me, we'll go raid somebody. Just for fun. Hang with me, guys. Thank you guys all so much for being here. Liberty Twitchers, thank you so much for the support. Liberty Twitcher and Solomon. Appreciate you, Solomon. Myron for the follow. Riding Fence with the sub as well. Thank you guys all so much. Everybody that got my viewers up to freaking 19 viewers on a real stream, on an actual Just Chatting, Lecture Fan Just Chatting stream. So thank you guys for that. Is Rob Knorr live, or is Rob Knorr not live? Let's read 30. My boy 30.
Some charcoal.
Oh, here you guys go. That's what it'll look like. Bullshit.